From the first volume of the Christmas in My Heart series, edited and compiled by Joe Wheeler, comes the story by Ruth Emery Amenrud called Guest in the House. Joe's reaction to the pink Christmas tree was a flat and stubborn no. And she had been doing it all for him, too, just so they could make a nice impression on the Whittams. But Joe was such a stick in the mud. Edie had started to plan the special Christmas Eve the night Joe first told her he wanted Clarice and Ed Whittam for Christmas. Even while she was protesting that the house was too small and too plain to entertain their sophisticated new neighbors, she was working on her list. She had to make a good impression. The Whittams were obviously people who did things the right way. Their new Rambler house was the ramblingest in the neighborhood. Their attached garage held 2 shining cars. Just meeting smartly dressed Clarice Whittam in the supermarket made Edie feel all helter-skelter and almost dowdy. And Joe wanted the Whittams for Christmas Eve. "They were tickled, honey," Joe told Edie when she reminded him again that their own Collins family Christmas was so old-fashioned. "This is their first Christmas here since Ed was transferred. They haven't been here long enough to really know anybody. And Ed loves kids, Edie. He even wants to help out coaching one of the kid baseball teams this summer." "Oh, goody," Edie said bitingly. "That's how we'll entertain them then. We'll have a ball game. With Uncle Maynard and Aunt Helen and Cousin Fred, we'll have just enough for a team." Edie was furious with Joe. Any other time she would have been delighted, but Christmas? There would be Uncle Maynard and Aunt Helen, each with the latest in aches and pains and their respective remedies. Joe's cousin Fred, a most uninteresting but kindly soul, would come with his drugstore-wrapped parcels and his wordy exclamations of why the large-sized colognes were really the practical buy. The children would be wound up like tops, and every good manner and naturally really charm would be lost in the mix-up. Everything for Edie started with a list. So she wrote down every detail of a simple but charmingly served dinner. She planned the children's time so they would not get out of hand. She had revised, rewritten, replanned, and reorganized until the list was perfect. And now she couldn't find it. "Where did I put it?" she asked herself desperately as she ransacked all the known tuck-away places in the house. Maybe the children would know. They certainly could find anything else that was hidden away. "Connie!" Edie really didn't expect an answer because 11-year-old Connie had a deafness that could be turned on or off according to the tone of her mother's voice. Today she responded promptly, and she trailed in, dragging 4 feet of shower curtain behind her. "Connie, what in the world are you supposed to be?" Again expecting no answer, Edie went on. "Have you seen my list?" "Which one?" Connie asked absently as she posed before the wall mirror. "What list are you talking about?" "The list of things to do for Christmas. I can't find anything in this clutter." The living room did have that Friday afternoon look, plus a little extra disorder of the rewrapped gift parcels brought home from school parties. This was the Friday before Christmas, but more important to Edie, it was the Friday before Whittam's. "I see Bill has been home too," Edie muttered, glancing at a pair of ice skates, a wad of damp towels, and something that looked like a rusty trap lying just inside the living room door. To him, home is just one big closet. "Billy's walking a girl home," giggled Connie, now completely swathed in shower curtain. "That's nice," Edie drawled. "I hope she inspires him to comb his hair and tuck in his shirt tail." "She's drippy, and so's Bill." Now Connie had one of Edie's brass candlesticks aloft in one hand. "Okay, Connie, I give up. What are you, the Statue of Liberty?" "Mother, don't you know a wise man when you see one?" Connie was shocked with her mother's lack of appreciation. "Nope, I guess not. I don't get to meet many wise men, not lately anyway." "This is a Bible wise man. It's for the church play. You forgot." "Oh dear, I almost did," Edie thought. But she said, "Well, not really, dear. Do you know your part?" "Mine and everyone else's too," retorted Connie in the know-it-all tone Edie found unbearable at times. "Is this how a wise man should look, Mom?" "Exactly, dear. And now please be one and remember where you saw the list." "I saw it in your hand, that's where. And I think it's silly. A list for what we do at Christmas? We always do the same things." Now she was Connie again, and the shower curtain was just a shower curtain. "That's just the trouble," thought Edie. "We always do the same things. But this year had to be different. She'd have to make a new list, that's all." The sound of the piano in the playroom started. "Oh, no," she groaned, "not that again." 2 months ago, 8-year-old Carol had balked like a young mule at every reminder to practice her piano lessons. But suddenly, it was different. She had burst into the house 2 weeks ago, brown eyes shining, crying, "I have a special piece for 2 hands, with runs and everything." To Edie, Carol's lessons proved no musical ability, merely showing her to be ambidextrous, with her right and left hands working completely independent of each other. Sometimes Edie was sure they were playing 2 different pieces, but Carol plugged along, counting her 1 and 2 and almost as loudly as she played the unmatched notes, and today this was just too much. "Carol, Carol, please!" Edie had to wait for the 2 and before she could be heard. Surprisingly, Carol's square little figure appeared promptly. "Hi, Mom, where you been? We had a party at school and we each got an autograph book from Miss Buckley and we brought home our decorations for our own tree." And there they were, wrapped in her sturdy little arms, yards and yards of orange-red paper links. "Oh, no," thought Edie, "not orange." "They're very pretty, honey," Edie said evenly, "but wouldn't you like to have them in the playroom instead?" "Oh, no, Mom, they're for everyone, not just me. Connie has so many more things on the tree than I do." Carol's voice told how much the crudely made chain meant to her, and Edie could picture the dark shining head bent over the task of making this for everyone. "Of course, honey, we'll keep it with all the other Christmas things." Edie resolved to find some place for the chain, Whittams or no Whittams. The big box taken from the storage closet each year held a wealth of these treasures, each marked carefully, Billy, 1st grade, or Connie, kindergarten, and so on. And each Christmas found the keepsakes a little more worn and defaced, but a little more precious. The box presented a real problem for Edie this year, because the first item on her list had been the pink Christmas tree. And that's when Joe shot sparks. "Who ever heard of a pink Christmas tree?" His nice Irishy face was anything but nice right then. "Listen, Edie, the Whittams are coming here to spend our Christmas in our way. That does not include a pink Christmas tree." "Oh, Joe, just once can't we do something with a little flair to it?" Edie begged. Joe was unmovable. "Honey, you can flare all over the place, but you know the kids have had their eyes on a tree in Carlson's woods for a long time. The tree chopping trip is a part of Christmas, and the kids love it, and so do I. No pink Christmas tree." "All right, then, be stubborn. You know I'm planning everything just for the Whittams." Her voice was at the near tear stage, and her cheeks were flushed. "Well, my pet, you can unplan everything then. It's Christmas the old way." And Joe's voice said that ended that. So it was going to be the regular, ordinary green Christmas tree with Connie's kindergarten angel and Bill's lopsided stars made from tin can covers and Carol's orange-red chain and all the other off-colored contributions with their dabs of paste and fingerprints still showing. "It isn't that we'd never use them again," Edie's conscience whispered. "It's just that this year was to be so special." Joe shot more sparks over the menu. "What do you mean roast beef?" he asked as he read the list over her shoulder. "What's the matter with lutefisk?" "But Joe, you never liked lutefisk when we were first married," Edie protested. "And the smell." "Well, I like it now, smell and all." Joe's voice softened as he went on. "As far as not liking it, honey, it's just that it was new to me. I never had any Christmas traditions until you showed me Christmas dinner off a menu. Christmas dinner off a menu, that's what I had. And now lutefisk is part of our Christmas." Edie felt a little ashamed because she remembered, too, that Joe, who had lived in a succession of rooming houses with his widowed father, had never known the warmth of a family Christmas until their marriage. She had loved his delight and surprise as each new tradition had been introduced, and she had felt a little proud that she could bring a real Christmas feeling into his life. And so the list had been changed. Green Christmas tree, lutefisk. A banging in the hall interrupted her thoughts. Bill's half-bass, half-treble voice called out, "We're home!" "You're telling me," she muttered, but she called, "Welcome! You can start in by putting away your share of the loot stowed around here." "You sound crabby, Mom," Bill said as he added a cap and a jacket to the mound on the floor. "I'm in a boy-eating mood, my lad, so do as you're told. You too," she added as she helped 5-year-old Rog with his snowsuit. Oh dear, she thought as they went up the stairs. Don't let me get owly over this. Friday night was meeting night for everyone but Edie and Raj, so after his bath and story and prayers and 3 drinks of water, plus a last-minute summons to ask if Santa Claus had any real children of his own, Edie was alone. By the time Joe and the children came home, the new list was ready, and there wasn't a thing on it to get excited about. It'll be the same old Christmas to us, but the lutefisk and the decorations will probably make it the most unusual one the Whittams have ever spent, Edie thought grimly, as she tumbled into bed beside the sleeping Joe. Early Saturday morning, Joe and the children went after the tree. Back in 2 hours, singing noisily, they tramped through the house like a parade. Then the whole family had a hand in decorating. Though Edie pitched in reluctantly, she soon was giggling with the rest over the yield of the treasure box. Pretty crummy-looking stable, Bill muttered, but his face shone at the family's staunch denials. Just let that Clarice Whittam look down her nose at it, Edie thought. Bill placed the crudely carved lamb and burro in front of the stable he had made from wooden cheese boxes. "Here's my angel! Where does it go?" squealed Connie. "Same place as always, hun," Joe told her. "Right on the top." And he reached up to place the faded and wilting angel in the uppermost branch. Next came Bill's stars and Carol's orange-red chain, and then round-eyed Raj cried, "My twinklers!" And Edie helped him to reach up with his paper spirals that bounced like springs and really did twinkle with bits of sequins. One by one, the treasures were discovered anew. The Tomte de Gaba, and Edie was touched to hear Joe tell Raj this was not Santa Claus, but a little elf that Edie's mother, Grandma Hansen, had brought from Sweden. The Yule Walk, raggedy now and brittle, but again Edie had to tell the story of how in Sweden every home has a large straw goat in the yard during the holiday season. A space was cleared on the mantel for the Anglerspel, and after the brass was polished, Connie set the 4 little candles in place, and Joe touched a match to each wick. The Anglerspel was a favorite with the children, and they loved to watch as the heat of the candle flames started the 4 chubby angels spinning round and round, each with a wand that touched a little brass chime. "Now it sounds like Christmas, too," Carol breathed ecstatically. Then Joe snapped the switch for the lights. "Oh," breathed the children in unison as the soft blues and reds and golds of the tiny lamps were reflected in the shimmering tinsel. "It's the most beautiful tree ever." "It is pretty," Edie thought, "but I did want a pink one with silver ornaments." Sunday brought Aunt Helen, complete with cold tablets and liniment and worn out from her bus trip from Duluth. Once Uncle Maynard appeared, though, she fell into a lively swap of symptoms that brought a healthy glow to her eyes. She was not to be outdone. Whatever ailment he named, she had one more serious. "At least I don't have to worry about entertaining them," thought Edie. "But the Whittams will take one look at us, and one whiff of that lutefisk, plus Aunt Helen's liniment, and they'll think we came over on the last boat." Cousin Fred, always a favorite with the children, arrived with his pockets bulging and his red face wreathed in smiles and quickly escaped to the playroom, where the racket became almost unbearable. Even Joe, who had stoutly defended Carol's musical ability, finally begged her to stop. "You'd think she could play something besides that tune," he complained cheerfully, as a loud "One-nanda" was accompanied by a halting run. Raj darted in and out on mysterious errands. A rope? A knife? Connie wanted to borrow Edie's coral beads. Bill needed a flashlight. And so the day went, and suddenly it was Monday, and the day of Christmas Eve. The day of the Whittams. "This one day should have 24 hours all between lunch and dinner," Edie said as she rushed through the house. She scarcely had the last bit of holly tacked in place when the Whittams arrived. Ed Whittam was hearty and friendly, and the children took him over at once. Clarice Whittam smiled sweetly and thanked Edie for allowing them to come. "I told Ed it was almost too much to expect," she said in her soft voice, "but I think the idea of having children around at Christmas was a temptation that overcame his good manners." "Oh, but we wanted you," Edie replied eagerly, and found herself meaning it. Clarice was generous in her compliments about the house and the children, and she won Aunt Helen completely with her sympathy. She's a lady, all right, Edie thought. Everything went well, and Joe beamed with pride as the children pointed out the treasures on the tree. "The twinklers are mine," Raj told them proudly, "but they're for everyone." "And I made the chain," Carol added, "and Connie made the angel when she was only 6 years old." "Such a Christmassy angel, too," Clarice Whittam said. I'll have to make a new manger next year, Bill said in his half-man voice, and making an awkward attempt to explain the crude stable. But you must always keep this one, Bill, Clarice told him. It's the very first one you made, and that makes it special. Edie thanked her silently with her eyes. The room looked like Christmas. The little Anglas bell tinkled away merrily, and the festive glow of the tree shone on the happy faces in the room. Suddenly, Clarice Whittam exclaimed, "What is that I smell?" Edie's heart went plop. I knew it, she thought. Here goes our nice impression. It's lutefisk, Joe said, and he made it sound like pheasant under glass. We have it every year. It's Scandinavian, you know. Indeed I know, answered Clarice, and it's been years since I've had it. At Edie's look of surprise, Clarice continued, I am one of those Minnesota Swedes you hear about, and I used to see the lutefisk stacked like cordwood outside my father's grocery store. The weather would be cold enough to keep it till it was taken home and soaked for hours. Then it was trimmed and tied in a cheesecloth bag and cooked in a huge kettle, and soon we'd smell it all over the house. That wonderful, wonderful smell. Edie felt weak, and I was for beef, she thought. I'm so glad you like it. For us it wouldn't be Christmas without lutefisk. Even my big Irishman loves it. And from her big Irishman she received a wry and slightly accusing grin that made her squirm. And who wouldn't like it? Asked Clarice, daring anyone to speak up. Aunt Helen, rejuvenated by the thought of food, added, And it's so healthy, so easy to digest. And Uncle Maynard just nodded, and Cousin Fred beamed and said the way he liked lutefisk was in large quantities. And so dinner was a wonderful success. The chatter was gay and family-ish, and the Whittams obviously enjoyed everything and everybody. As they left the table, Clarice Whittam said, This is a Christmas I shall never forget. It is almost as though it were planned just for me. It was, thought Edie, avoiding Joe's look, for you, in spite of me and my big ideas. It's time for the program, sang out Raj, as the family and guests settled themselves in the living room. Every Christmas Eve, right after dinner, and before any gifts were opened, the family sang carols, and the children performed their parts from the church and school programs. Edie had hoped to postpone this little ceremony until after the guests' departure, and now she murmured almost apologetically, They love this part of Christmas. Why, of course they do. Clarice's eyes were sparkling. She applauded softly, encouraging the children to begin. After a few minutes of whispered conference in the hall, Bill entered with a wooden box that he placed carefully at one end of the room. His back was turned, but when he moved aside, they could see the shaded glow of light that came from inside the box. It's a cradle, whispered Clarice. They've made a cradle for their program. So that's why they wanted a flashlight, Edie thought. Bill left quietly, and serious little Raj entered. In childish, measured tones, he recited his Sunday school Welcome One and All poem, and bowed formally during the applause that followed. Still unsmiling, Raj announced, In a minute we'll have a play, soon as I put my costume on. I have 2 parts, because there aren't enough of us to be everything. He did smile then, but a sibilant whisper from the hall restored his dignity, and he went on. The people in the play are Miss Constance Collins, she's the wise man, Mr. William Collins is the shepherd, and and Mr. Roger Collins is the angel. At that moment he looked like one. Miss Carol Collins is the she plays the piano. He started to leave, but hesitated long enough to say, We all wrote the play, but Connie did the most. There was a little flurry of excitement in the hall, and then Carol entered and seated herself with dignity at the piano. She played a halting arrangement of Silent Night as the others came in. Connie, resplendent in the shower curtain, and with Edie's coral beads holding a silk scarf on her head, led the procession. Thought Edie, it really doesn't look like a shower curtain now. In her hands, Connie held a long white scroll, and on her face was a look of reverence. Next came Bill in Joe's striped bathrobe, tied with a stout rope around his slim waist. His head was hooded, and he carried Carol's old toy lamb under his arm. Raj came last, swathed in white, with 2 huge paper wings pinned to his back. On his head was a band of tinsel. As he took his place behind the cradle, the glow from within gave an added radiance to his sweet face and made the tinsel band truly a halo. Connie read the Christmas story from her scroll. The children stood quietly, moving only as the lovely story progressed. They looked at the sky and at the star everyone felt was really there. They expressed the awe of the shepherds and the wise men. They knelt in adoration before the manger of the babe. And then the piano started again. Edie sat straight and stiff as she recognized the long-practiced melody, and she groped for Joe's hand. Carol's fingers seemed so sure, and though her lips counted the 1 and 2 and she did not miss a note. Forgive me, Edie thought. They knew all the time what was really important about Christmas, and I almost forgot. To think they had to show me again. It isn't pink Christmas trees or something you can put on a list. It isn't glitter and impressions. It's all this. Love and sweetness and sharing. She felt the understanding pressure of Joe's hand on hers, and with her eyes filled with happy tears, she listened to the children sing. Sweetly and simply their voices rang out in the words, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Jesus, happy birthday to